So it's what do you think about public school systems? And I hate them so much. So since I've been talking, I feel like I've shared a lot of stories. Kurt, you saw a different era school system
Yep.
for public schools. I'm assuming, and did your kids go to public school?
My kids did go to public school.
Okay. So what do you think of the system they came through?
I am largely not a fan. But I will tell you that I think there's a couple different reasons for that. So my wife worked for a short time in the public school system as well. And I think that the areas that are put forth for initiatives often do not come through the way that we were sold them. So I will give you an example, a couple actually. The local public schools went to block scheduling, which really means instead of hour classes,
It's like college or A, B, C blocks.
yeah, but they
Yeah.
went to 90-minute classes.
Okay. All right.
And versus 1 hour classes. And the reason they did that, well, what they told us was that would give the teachers and the students more opportunity to take concentrated time on the subject matter and thereby allowing the kids to internalize that knowledge more.
Okay.
Great. On the surface, that sounds great. Do you want to know how that worked out? How that manifested itself?
No.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So the way that manifested itself is the teachers taught for an hour, just like they did before, and then the last half hour of the class was spent doing homework. Every class, every single class. And so my kids routinely came home with no homework, which I'm not necessarily against, but the expectations were less for the kids. Because it didn't even matter what class they were in or what the subject matter was. It was almost like they had a hard stop at 60 minutes, and then the last half hour was spent doing homework. So that's one thing. So I think that so what ended up happening is the kids ended up with 1 or 2 less classes per day, but no additional knowledge. So there was that. The other thing, and this is probably more controversial, No Child Left Behind.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
So No Child Left Behind was meant to say, hey, we don't care if your child has learning disabilities or whatever. We are going to invest the time and effort to get them some schooling. Cool.
Smaller classrooms, higher
all
education,
of that.
those kind of things. Yeah.
I love that. And the way that manifested itself from what I saw was more disabled kids came to school. Great. No problem. Because they ended up hiring more paraprofessionals. Cool. Great. However, it ended up being a bit of a dumping ground by the parents for free childcare.
Yep.
And random kid, exactly what I feel. The idea was really good, and I think had the people who started it probably had the best of intentions. In practice, it was terrible and remains terrible because it just becomes it provides jobs. It provides jobs for paraprofessionals. But what ends up happening is those kids don't get any schooling. In practice, what ends up happening is the para that's assigned to them goes to the classes with them, ends up doing the schoolwork for the kids without any idea whether or not they're acknowledging what's going on. And the kids at high school level are allowed to be there until they're 21.
Mm.
So routinely they had adult disabled people in the schoolroom, and it was a babysitting service. Now you can argue whether or not that's of benefit to society, and it might be, but don't sell me a banana and tell me it's an orange.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. So it's just, and then not for tonight, but teachers unions.
Okay, I will put
Oh.
it.
So not for tonight. Not for
I
tonight.
got you. I'm
Yeah.
yeah.
We definitely need to have a what do you think about unions in general?
Not tonight.
Not
Not
tonight.
tonight. Not tonight.
So
Making
I've
the
got,
notes.
and because I had intended on being a school teacher, I've got very strong feelings about just the education system in general, and I think it just needs to be blown up
Yeah, burns to the ground.
figuratively and redesigned from the ground up.
So you're gonna say you need to shoot it full of holes and then
Figuratively and redesign it from the ground up.
I agree. Joe.
Yes. How are you doing?
You brought up how much Mountain Dew have you had, sir? You
Not
brought up the
enough.
topic. Am I moving in slow motion to you? What do you think
like that
about
clip for
public-
Brooklyn Nine-Nine where they drank all the coffee and everyone's
Yeah.
moving in slow motion?
I don't remember that one. I was thinking Over the Hedge where I saw it first. Where
Oh.
the squirrel drank caffeine. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why my wife is homeschooling our kids and has been for the past almost 3 years now. Actually, no, over 3 years now. And the public schools are failing in a lot of ways. There are, like everything, there's exceptions to that. There are some public schools that are doing fantastic work. Like, for instance, I think my high school had some outstanding teachers. I think that my education was top notch at my high school. But I think that nowadays that is the exception rather than the rule, which is quite sad. And the public schools near me aren't bad per se, but I feel like my kids are learning so much more being at home. And even so, my wife has signed up for this program. I think it's called Harmony. Where
Harmony?
No, Harmony.
I'll just make sure she didn't get mad at me on the show and then decide to leave you. I don't know how it works.
Well, so it's a program here where you can redirect some of the state spending from the public school to yourself so that you can use those funds for your homeschooling efforts. And so
That's fairly progressive, actually.
Yeah, so I don't know if that exists everywhere or if it's Tennessee thing.
No.
And so it's not a half bad amount either, not at all. It's like $3,000 per kid, I think, is what it is. To spend on different things. Now, granted, you have to get approval and everything like that for all of the different expenditures, but it's been awesome. The only caveat there is because we're signed up through this, my kids do have to take the state testing. And so there are several homeschool families that I know of in the area that refuse to sign up for this program because they don't want their kids to do state testing. And
that'd be also a side discussion because I got thoughts on that, but
yeah,
we'll make a side discussion.
State testing, we'll
do another show. That'll be fun.
Well, no. The state testing is basically exactly what Random Kids put here. That teachers care more about testing metrics instead of actual learning.
I've got to take on that as well. I got you.
And there are students that do very well at test taking that don't necessarily know the subject. Like some people, they do well at test taking and they know the subjects, but there's people who they know what to memorize because they know that that's what's going to be on the test. And then they forget it within the next couple of weeks. And so my kids, though, with testing, there's a couple of we just use it as a metric for, hey, we need to focus a little bit more on these specific things, and most of the time it's stuff that we already knew that my kids needed help on. Like, they are phenomenal at math. We know this because, well, they at least my oldest especially has a mind that thinks very similarly to me when it comes to math, and math just comes really easy to me.
He has the knack.
Yes. And but then they struggle with reading comprehension and reading out loud, which again is no surprise to me, and it's something that we are working on with them. But in general, the public school kids get lost in the crowd because it's one teacher to usually 30 or more kids, and you don't have time to focus on these specific areas with them. Whereas at home, with these metrics, and that's what we're using it for, the metrics from the state testing, is, hey, focus on these specific areas because that's where the deficit is. And so we can see where they are excelling and where they could use a little bit of help. And so in general, public schools, I don't think they're anywhere near what they were in yesteryears, basically.
I have no idea about yesteryears. I was homeschooled most of my life. I went to first grade at basically a Christian school. So at a certain point in my kids' educational careers, I got to a point with Oakland where I wanted to have a better relationship with my son because I was losing my crap on him in school and just bearing down. It was a mess. It was a mess. And so we ended up letting him go to public school. And coming up early, pre-K and all that, we were doing whatever programs we found to be great. I think some of his pre-K was at a church and some of it was at a public school program, like kindergarten, maybe in public school. Great teacher there. When we put him when we did first through fifth grade, I think more or less first through fourth grade at homeschool, and decided Erin couldn't help. She was busy doing it. It was just a mess in her family. So we put him in public school. All 4 kids have gone to some version of public school at this point. And it just blows my mind how much on the edges of things. Now, before I go into this, I'll caveat this other thing. There are great teachers out there. There are amazing teachers who want to teach. And I'm actually going to talk about how the system's broken. So even if there's great teachers who want to teach, there's bad systems, bad bosses, underfunding. There's other stuff there. So I will talk about that. But so there, I can acknowledge I had some great teachers throughout my life. Not always, none of them in public school, but that's because I didn't go there. But that being said, I have never seen another profession that is so freaking whiny and so freaking egotistical at the same time. And still, the majority of them won't do their jobs. And it blows my mind. They're not teaching the kids. In fifth grade, because my son's education was important to me, whether I was going to do it or not. And he's getting bad grades, and he's not understanding things that he should be able to explain to me at this point in first grade. And I said at the parent-teachers meeting, and because me and my wife went in, and we are here to basically go, what can we do to help? This is important to us. Let us know how we can help at home to make sure he's getting good grades in your class. But as I do, I just wanted to confirm some things that he was telling us. And I don't remember what they are now, but it's like, is it true that this happens in your class or that? And she couldn't even look at us. Her hands were shaking. And I was coming back into my butthead phase, not that phrasing, but for Joe.
I didn't know you ever left it.
Oh, it's been turned down. It was way up here. Then it got down here. Then it came back to a nice, good level where you're at now. So I had to say, why you, at my car, I was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? I'm a medical professional. You're shaking. Because the principal sitting there, her co-teacher sitting there, everybody's calm, and she's just, I mean, hands and shit, couldn't look at us. Like, I looked at the principal like, this is not going to go well this year. And I got up and left. I was like, that's where I have no time or patience for them. So they're not teaching him. So he's coming home with homework, and I'm having to teach him at home the stuff I didn't want to teach him at home. Now, he got some other good lessons of socialization and how to deal with the teacher. This teacher went to battle with him. He's in 5th grade. And she just started doing some dumb things. And I told him, I was like, this is basically what you say. And I made him a little rock demigod over there. And not to be smart, but to stand on truth. And for whatever reason, on like the last day of school, she went to try to have a verbal battle with him and just got drugged. It was, I don't understand. You're an adult. Be an adult. So we went out through their careers, and we've had issues with all of the kids and behavior, issues with other kids in the class, issues with the teachers not teaching, all of them not wanting to do anything and not even wanting to give us the time of day. We're there to help. They didn't want to talk to us. And what killed it the most for me, well, no, there's one worse than this. So one of the big things that started damaging it for me was parent-teacher meeting for my son again, because he has what I had growing up. He can do the job. He forgets to turn it in, doesn't complete the steps. So he'd have homework in his bag that we went to his parent-teacher meeting, and I was like, all the teachers there, it's like junior high or whatever. So they kind of like college, they have different teachers in a hall. So all of them were there to talk to me about their subjects. And one of his teachers, but she really cared. I think she was probably a great teacher, to be honest, because she was like talking to him like I would talk to him. It's like, oh, I told you if you turned in your reports, you would still get credit. And I looked at him, I was like, what do you mean turn in your report? I said, look in your butt bag. He opens his backpack that he's been carrying for 2 weeks, pulls out the homework that is 100% done. I forgot to turn it in. And he still got credit. But we're sitting in a math class, and that's the problem I have. I'm a huge math nerd. I took, for fun, pre-calculus, pre-trig, and pre-physics because I just thought it was a blast. I needed him to know what 10 times 10 was. You know, I need to know how to work fractions, just basic building stones of life. And as I'm sitting there, she's just giving me grief. I promised myself I wouldn't talk so long. Oh, I don't know why I said that. But no, seriously, these stories are killing me. I'm sitting there in her math class, and I asked him because he gets homework back, and I couldn't even. My wife's dad is an engineer, graduated Georgia Tech. His son has the same brain. My wife basically does too. She says she doesn't, but her brother, fairly smart. I'm a genius. This kid's got everything lined up for him. The 4 of us, my kid and the 3 adults, could not, with Google and anything else, figure out an answer to this math problem that's on his like 8th grade sheet. So I asked him, it was like, when did they explain the answers to you? He goes, they don't. So what do you mean? You don't get an explanation of what you missed. You don't get, no, we sit at our desks. She marks it. She gives it back to us. And then we got to go put it in the filing cabinet on our own. It's all right. So we go to his teacher meeting. He gets called out for not turning in homework. Does that? Other teacher saying things I already knew. And we came up with some plans to help with that. And we're talking about math. And I asked her, is that true? Well, you know, it smarted off to me. And I was like, okay, but seriously, how are they supposed to know what they got wrong on this homework that you're sending home? Which, by the way, takes them like an hour to do every night, and it's stupid. But how's he supposed to know what he got right or wrong? Well, they can look at it while they get filing. And you guys should know this tone of voice by now, because I only do it when I'm about to bring the knowledge hammer down on you and make you feel stupid. No, I don't do it to you, but you probably heard it. So you're telling me that you take the paper, you mark it right or wrong, you slap it down on our desk, and they may have up to what, 3 or 4 minutes to look at it at most while everybody's filing, and that first kid doesn't get to look at it at all? Well, Mr. McFall, if you're going to be that way. And I'm like, who wrote that problem on the board? And she goes, I did. I stood up, erased it, fixed it, and went, how are they supposed to learn if you can't even do the math? The other teachers escorted her out of the room and started walking me down the hallway. And that's when I was done with that. But my kids convinced me to let them do a little bit more socializing, football, wrestling, those kind of things. And my daughter basically got some death threats, like viable death threats that the school decided to do nothing about. And it turned out the girl who was threatening her had been kicked out of 3 other schools for the same thing, was saying stuff like she would take the safety officer's gun and shoot people. This is in 2016, 15. So well past gun shooting issues and bullying issues and stuff that we need to be handling right here and now. And that was it. Pulled all my kids out. And their brains skyrocketed. We've been doing powered homeschool, which is a functional system that has videos and everything else. It's based on Acellus. I just want to give a quick plug for it, because Acellus was built for geniuses, literally for those kids who are truly geniuses that need to develop social skills as well as take high-level calculus in 5th grade. And it was built for that. And then they figured out how to use that and make different levels of homeschool. And the one we use is called Powered Homeschool. And it's accredited. They give all the courses, and it's something I can swing in and help with and help them look stuff up and help them, like I helped Zoe tonight. And it's just, for my life and my wife's life, it's just the best way to school, because I've watched the videos with them. They're very on the kids level, very easy to understand. They give other stuff. It's so good. So I hope they never let their kids go to public school. It's the worst. Now, the living thing, I know I've talked a long time, but I did promise I would say I would take some of the teacher sides. But most of the teachers I've dealt with, all they want to do is complain about the kids, complain about they don't have money, complain, and not figure out how to reach kids or do what they can with what they have. But also, there are those great teachers who will change your life and believe in you, who get run out of the system because of the burnouts, the people who are nasty, the bad managers who get made principals, who don't know how to budget, who don't know how to spend what they have, to the county commissioners who aren't giving the funding to the schools that they need. Our security officer was so big, he could hardly walk from the car to the school. And how's he supposed to help somebody? Our high school has made the news every year for violence and low state grades. This year we saw they blew up on TikTok. Our high school right here blew up on TikTok because they're screaming at the kids day one, clear backpacks, empty you out, metal. I mean, they were just treating them like you're entering prison. And it was rough. And we still had 2 shootings at the school this year. Not like going in and shoot them up shootings, but like the football game's going on and somebody in the parking lot lets off and freaks everybody out. I'm with you, Kurt. It has to be destroyed. It has to be changed. And it's not what it ever was meant to be. What it was meant to be is a teacher, which were rare, would come and all the different levels would come in and you try to get them what you could. And like you said, it has become somewhat of babysitting. It's become, you have to have a master's degree to teach 1st grade, which is super expensive. And depending on where you go, you're not going to get paid crap.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, here's the other side of that for me is that I understand there are bad teachers. There's bad fill in the blank. There's bad everybody, right? Like in every profession, there's somebody who's kind of terrible at their job. But I also think that there's a lot of good teachers who have been beaten down because they're handicapped by what the administrators say they need to do and teach to these test scores and teach to these things, because frankly, it's easier to teach to this test scores. No, it's easier to measure the results of the test scores and make decisions based on that than
and their
actual
pay is affected by that sometimes.
Right. And so I think new teachers go in with all the idealism in the world, thinking they're going to reach these students. And then the administrators say, yeah, cool, but that's not why we're here. and we're here to do this other thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I had a music teacher in high school who meant the world to me. He is the guy responsible for me still being involved in music today, because of the type of teacher that he was. He was in my wedding party. He is that special teacher to me. But if you ask me about any other experience in high school, and I went to a private high school, all right? If you ask me about any other experience in high school, what I will tell you is I was assigned 6 term papers. I did one of them, got graded on all of them, a passing grade. And the most valuable class I took in school was typing.
Actually, I can see that. That's a skill.
And I took it one semester as a senior, and when I graduated, I could type 45 words per minute, and great. And I used it, and I still use it to this day.
Right. Now, Kurt, Joe he has to top us. He lives the TV/movie life. He says, is this true, Joe? My music teacher in middle school was hungover all the time. That's why we watched Newsies like 4 times. That's such a Disney TV show moment.
We watched Newsies like 4 times, and there was another musical that we watched a couple of times too. But may not have been hungover, but it sure seemed that way.
So here's the secret about the music teachers. If they're not actually meant to be music teachers, they are failed professional musicians.
Yeah.
And so he likely was hungover most of the time because he was probably out the night before gigging.
Probably. Now that was a good teacher in one of our public schools. We had a young lady, fresh off the boat, new out of school, music teacher. And we're like, oh, me and my wife like, oh, this is gonna be horrible to watch, because she meant well. We supported her, a bunch of people did. She meant well, but then the school system, man, it just took her by either year 2, possibly year 3. It was like meth, but not meth. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole spirit was crushed, just a whole different look to her. It was not great. And when you try to talk to her, she'd say it's because Joe keeps trying to take me to the bathroom for those Candy Mountain slushies.